The Allen Lund Company continues to support the owner-operators of OOIDA. Thank you for what you do, and stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
What will enhanced enforcement of English proficiency regulations be like? Jay Grimes of OOIDA breaks down how the requirement will be tested on roadways and also explains how Congress is closer to targeting freight fraudsters. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Ashley Blackford will speak with therapist Buck Black to find out when you should reach out for help and offers tips on how to do that if you're on the road. And finally, North Dakota and Montana are taking action regarding speed limits, and an Ohio bill discourages ticket quotas. Scott Thompson talks with our state legislative expert, Keith Goebel. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today, an industry insider is raising the alarm about cargo theft this holiday weekend. The logistics security firm CargoNet issued a warning to carriers regarding a heightened risk for theft over the Memorial Day weekend. According to the company, cargo theft activity in 2025 has already surged to unprecedented levels. Keith Lewis, CargoNet's vice president of operations, said in a statement that the days immediately following Memorial Day have historically seen elevated theft activity, likely because loaded trailers are often left unattended while businesses close for the holiday. But Lewis added that the numbers have spiked over the last couple years. When it comes to protecting your freight from thieves, CargoNet said carriers should implement enhanced security protocols. Those include avoiding unsecured parking, scheduling strategically to minimize the time loaded trailers sit unattended, verifying that all security systems are functioning properly, and implementing layered security measures like high-security locks and GPS tracking devices. A piece of legislation aimed at tackling the growing issue of cargo theft is moving forward. The Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation unanimously voting Wednesday to advance a number of measures, including the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act. The bill was introduced in January by Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska, who explained to the committee what prompted it and how her bill would work toward fixing the problem.
Since 2021, there has been 1,500% increase in cargo theft incidents, costing the industry $35 billion annually. S337 allows the FMCSA to impose civil penalties against unauthorized brokers. Additionally, it would require companies in the household goods sector to establish a principal place of business to prohibit fraudulent companies from skirting existing regulations. This bipartisan, bicameral legislation will give the FMCSA the tools needed to protect consumers from fraud by scammers in the interstate transportation of household goods.
The cargo theft legislation is supported by a number of industry stakeholders, including the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. OOIDA President Todd Spencer said freight fraud committed by criminals and scam artists has been devastating to many small business truckers simply trying to make a living in a tough freight market. The federal government has shown significant interest in curbing the issue of late. Earlier this month, during a House Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee roundtable, industry stakeholders were given an opportunity to discuss what measures the federal government should be taking to curb the rising rates of cargo theft. During the session, members of the panel expressed support for the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, which seeks to enhance communication between federal and state agencies investigating cargo crime and to strengthen prosecution of those convicted of cargo theft. 2 more states are delaying enforcement of advanced clean trucks. Vermont Governor Phil Scott earlier this month signed an executive order suspending advanced clean trucks until 2027. 2 days later, the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality issued a memo halting enforcement of the electric truck sales mandate for 2 years. Under the Advanced Clean Trucks rule, 7% of model year 2025 Class 7 and Class 8 truck sales must be zero-emission trucks. That percentage increases each year until 2032, when 40% of sales must be zero-emission trucks. Including California, 11 states have adopted advanced clean trucks. 5 states were supposed to start the electric truck sales rule this year: Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, and Washington. Vermont was set to begin the regulation next year, with 4 more states implementing it in 2027. In his executive order, Scott said Advanced Clean Trucks has insufficient technological advances in heavy-duty vehicles to meet the electric truck sales requirements. The number of trailers being ordered last month dipped. ACT Research data shows that orders fell 32% in April compared with a year earlier. It was a 57% drop compared with March, when orders spiked. Jennifer McNeely, Director of Commercial Vehicle Market Research at ACT, said the lower April numbers were expected since it's one of the weaker order months of the annual cycle. She added there's some concern to be had, though, considering the state of industry backlogs. Fresh off an NTSB report that said a lack of truck parking contributed to a deadly 2023 crash in Illinois, the House truck parking bill has picked up another supporter. Congressman Daniel Webster of Florida is the 40th co-sponsor of the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, which would funnel $755 million into building free, publicly available truck parking spaces nationwide. The bill was introduced by Congressman Mike Bost of Illinois. The National Transportation Safety Board this week connected a lack of truck parking to a crash that happened in 2023 along I-70 in Illinois. 3 people were killed when a Greyhound bus crashed into 3 parked semi-trucks that were on the exit ramp. Congressman Bost, in response to the NTSB report, said he's hopeful it will provide additional momentum in Congress to pass his legislation to expand safe, accessible parking options. To get your elected member of the House on board, head to fightingfortruckers.com and click on the Key Trucking Legislation tab at the top of the page. Meanwhile, we're tracking another trucking-related bill that just picked up another supporter. In fact, it's Congressman Webster again. He's a second co-sponsor of the Staged Accident Fraud Prevention Act, a relatively new bill in the House that would increase penalties for staging a crash with a commercial motor vehicle. The bill aims to address schemes involving vehicles intentionally getting into wrecks with tractor-trailers in an attempt to collect damages. Those caught doing that would face federal charges under the terms of the bill, which the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association supports. OIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh said staged accidents are not victimless crimes. They're calculated, premeditated assaults that endanger lives, destroy livelihoods, and compromise highway safety. The state of Wisconsin is releasing more than $450,000 in grants to help with CDL training. The money is going to 17 groups across 13 counties. The Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development says the grants will help put 260 drivers on the road. We've got some results from one state that participated in a recent enforcement blitz targeting commercial trucks. Operation United Front ran for 2 weeks this month, with a special focus on Interstate 24 in Illinois and Kentucky, and Interstate 57 in Illinois and Missouri. Kentucky State Police say they inspected more than 270 commercial motor vehicles along I-24 over that time. 53 vehicles were placed out of service, along with 16 drivers. The numbers from Illinois and Missouri have not been released yet. And finally, 2 rest areas in Butler County, Ohio, are closing down for the next year. The Ohio Department of Transportation says the rest areas along north and southbound Interstate 75 are being torn down and replaced. They're scheduled to close to the public right after the July 4th holiday weekend. The Ohio DOT says both rest areas should reopen next summer. During the Monroe rest area closure, the closest facilities for southbound travelers will be near Florence, Kentucky off Interstate 71. Northbound traffic can access the rest area in Hancock County, Ohio. That's Lane Line Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. For most American workers, putting in time over 40 hours at their job means time and a half pay, but not for truck drivers, as we all know. Now a bill called the Guaranteeing Overtime for Truckers, or GOT Truckers Act, would require that overtime pay for truckers. The bill is H.R. 1962 in the House and S. 893 in the Senate. Call to support the bill at 202-224-3121 or by writing a letter to your members of Congress at fightingfortruckers.com. Next, Jay Grimes joins the program with an update on enforcement of English proficiency regulations. Ashley Blackford speaks with therapist Buck Black to find out when you should reach out for help. And Scott Thompson discusses speed limit changes in 2 states with state expert Keith Goebel. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long-haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
Welcome back to Landline Now. While you're out working, so are federal regulators. It's hard to keep track of what's new because you've understandably got other things on your mind, but thankfully we've got Jay Grimes on our side. Jay is OIDA's Director of Federal Affairs, and he joins us by phone from Washington, D.C. for our weekly installment of Regulatory Roundup. Jay, how you doing?
Doing well. Good to be with you.
Good to have you, and we've got a lot to talk about here, and I think if we had to pinpoint the biggest story of the week, Jay, I don't think it's an understatement to say it would be this English proficiency push that the USDOT has started here. I spoke with Transportation Secretary Duffy over after the news conference in Austin, Texas, about why he viewed this as such an important issue. We've gotten into the details a little bit, but we're going to delve into them even more with you here. And FMCSA really is steering the ship, Jay, and I wonder if you can kind of walk us through exactly how this is going to work, because I think that's important based on the agency's guidance.
Yeah, no doubt. The story of the week really going back a couple months here at this point. Obviously, the critical action from President Trump and the executive order to restore English language proficiency violations back into the out-of-service criteria. And then we saw some formal steps taken by the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. And then this week, great event down in Austin with Secretary Duffy, OOIDA, including yourself down there. And now we've got another technical piece from this new guidance released by FMCSA for commercial vehicle enforcement personnel, really updating some of the criteria that these officers should take when conducting roadside inspections. The guidance is effective immediately, but kind of as a reminder, these guidance documents do not hold the order of law or regulation. We are waiting, I think, on that June 25th date with that CVSA formally restoring these violations into the out-of-service criteria. But I think this is definitely some helpful information on kind of how this is likely to be enforced. And I think really fairly simple, I think, from reading through this guidance document that, personnel are going to initiate all roadside inspections in English. If the initial contact with the driver indicates that the driver may not understand the inspector's initial instructions, the inspector should conduct an English language proficiency assessment in order to evaluate compliance with those English proficiency regulations. And it's sort of a two-step process consisting of first a driver interview and then, if necessary, a highway traffic sign recognition assessment. So FMCSA has kind of issued this 11-page document, kind of, really detailing these steps. They've kind of redacted the specific questions and order of questions and the highway signs that are going to be included as part of this assessment. But this now rescinds that 2016 FMCSA guidance that formally removed the out-of-service violations. And now we've got updated guidance with some new steps for inspectors. And I think, it's going to kind of put this on solid ground moving forward. And we'll kind of see what the new policies are, how enforcement works. I think Secretary Duffy mentioned back in about 10 years ago, there were over close to 100,000 English proficiency violations. That number is down to like 10,000 in recent years, with none of them resulting in any out-of-service placement. And I think White House has made clear, DOT, FMCSA have made clear that if law enforcement personnel believes that a driver is out of compliance, then that driver needs to be placed out of service. So this guidance document supplements that information, and I think makes it pretty clear, the safety impacts regarding the English language proficiency regulations.
Yeah, and, if we're handing out attaboys, OOIDA certainly deserves one, and you and your colleagues there in the Washington, D.C. office kind of got this ball rolling here. It really is remarkable how quickly this has all fallen into place, too, because the CVS meeting, when was that? A few weeks ago, I guess it was. And Doug Morris, your colleague, was there.
Yep.
And really pushed this issue to make sure that President Trump's executive order was followed by CVSA. And to their credit, too, they fell in line pretty quickly and made this part of their out-of-service criteria, again, as you mentioned, starting June 25th, I believe it is. But it's remarkable how quickly this has fallen into place. And it will be interesting to see how it affects the out of service numbers out there. And as you have stated time and time again, the association has, this really does come down to safety. That's what this is all about.
Yes, and I think OIDA President Todd Spencer, really emphasized that in his comments earlier this week, where explaining that English language proficiency, it's not optional. It's essential. And the margin of error for drivers who are operating commercial motor vehicles can really come down to knowledge, understanding, and comprehension of important road signs, safety messages, communicating with law enforcement personnel, communicating with emergency personnel, and other drivers on the road as well. So this guidance document, I think, also reiterates DOT's perspective that this is a major safety priority. And you kind of mentioned it is certainly out of the norm for policy in Washington to move this quickly. On one hand, it really, I think shows the potential that when industry, law enforcement personnel from CVSA, as we've seen with their actions, and DOT and FMCSA, when everyone's kind of on the same page and in agreement, that stuff can get done really quickly in some cases, even though it's going to be about 3 to 4 months when everything all settles, but much quicker than what we're used to here inside the Beltway. And it also makes you wonder. We have, I think, a similar situation on truck parking, yet that continues to kind of get delayed and is very frustrating that more action hasn't been taken there. But we'll take the wins when we can get them. And I think the events this week, this guidance document beginning June 25th, I think we're going to start seeing safety when it comes to common sense enforcement, common sense regulations, on this provision being back and enforced and restored. And that's certainly, I think, an improved highway safety.
Speaking of the Beltway, let's turn the page here. We had some movement. We've seen some movement, I guess, on the ongoing battle against freight fraud in the Senate. That happened this week when the Commerce Committee took up a bill called the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act, which we've talked about here on the show before, introduced by Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska. What is the latest there? Are we getting some traction?
Yeah, another small step forward here. And of course, freight fraud continues to plague the industry, especially within the last 5 or so years coming out of the COVID pandemic. Estimates are that fraud costs trucking over $800 million a year. We know motor carriers are victimized through unpaid claims, unpaid loads, double brokering, load fishing schemes. There's just so many different ways that some of these criminal actors can take advantage of not only the FMCSA systems right now, but the lack of enforcement. And this bill, the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act, really attempts to kind of give FMCSA some more authority to issue civil penalties against this criminal activity. It restores and codifies FMCSA's ability to do that. It also requires that brokers and freight forwarders provide a valid physical and business address to FMCSA in order to register for authority. One of the most common schemes that we're seeing right now is these P.O. boxes and these fake addresses being used dozens, hundreds of times for these fake entities to kind of pop up, get their authority from FMCSA, and then take advantage of unknowing motor carriers, especially small businesses. So this legislation was introduced originally last Congress in the House, and earlier this year was introduced in the House, and for the first time in the Senate. The Senate bill is S-337, and earlier this year, I think back in February, OIDA Executive Vice President got to testify before the Senate Commerce Committee on the need for this legislation and how helpful it would be for the trucking industry. And now that same committee has marked up the bill, advanced it unanimously through committee as of yesterday. And we heard from the bill's co-sponsor, one of the co-sponsors, Senator Deb Fischer from Nebraska. It's also been championed by Senator Tammy Duckworth from Illinois. And Senator Fischer said, gives FMCSA the tools they need to crack down against freight fraud. So major issue. Good to see the ball continue to roll. We think this bill, both the Senate version and the House version, hoping to get this included in the major highway bill that's being developed on both sides of Capitol Hill right now and throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's encouraging. This obviously wouldn't solve all the problems out there, but it would go a long way toward helping a lot of people from becoming victims. And this is bipartisan. You've got pretty much every major trucking association and organization supporting it as well. Common sense legislation, and hopefully, it looks like it's on the right track. Hopefully, we'll see it hit the finish line here, and we'll get something done here about these bad actors that are working out there. Real quick, Jay, we got a couple minutes here before we let you go. And as much as we'd like to forget about the beneficial ownership information or BOI reporting requirement, and we've talked about it so many times, it is still lingering out there, kind of. At last check, I believe the requirement isn't being enforced, but the Department of Treasury is looking for some feedback as it tries to make sense of this mess and, I guess, how to move forward here. What are they asking for? Not a lot of time to comment, right?
Yeah, we're not out of the woods yet, but back in March, the Department of Treasury and the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network issued an interim rule that modified the legislation where all these reporting requirements came from, and it removed the requirement to file these beneficial ownership information reports for the most part. Foreign companies still must comply with those reporting rules, but the interim rule is open for comment for another few days through May 27th. Certainly, we are going to be supportive of this interim rule, want to make it permanent, and just want to ensure that small businesses aren't going to be burdened by what we think are duplicative information requirements where they're going to have to send identifying and business information to the Department of Treasury, where all of this information is already on hand through different registration requirements through DOT, and I think also through the tax filings that are submitted every year as well. So this would be some red tape that we don't think small businesses should have to go through, and want to ensure that this interim rule becomes permanent and small businesses, don't have to contend with more time, more effort, more costs on this matter. So I want to get this BOI off the table for good, and I think you can support the cause by submitting your comments before May 27th.
Yeah, it's a headache for a lot of folks, and I got to say it's been a headache for me too, trying to make sense of what they're asking and which direction the wind is blowing at any given time with this BOI stuff. But we'll get it figured out at some point. Jay, we thank you for your time, and thank you for helping us make sense of all the confusion out there in the Beltway as well.
All right, we'll see you next time.
That was Jay Grimes of OIDA. I'm Scott Thompson, and we're back with more Landline Now right after this short commercial break.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget misaccuracy when your truck on a cat scale.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
Welcome back. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Here to speak with me about this is Buck Black, who is a licensed therapist. Buck, I want to start out by asking, from your perspective, what does this month mean?
It means that this is a good month to be talking about mental health. And one of the things that I think about whenever, whether it's Mental Health Month or some other month bringing awareness to an important situation, is that we need to be thinking about it all year and not just simply that one month. But nonetheless, it's good that it's recognized, and to be able to be thinking about what can we do for ourselves. We hear so much about our physical health, but we don't hear as much about what we need to do to keep ourselves in a good mood. And plenty of times people don't realize that mental health is also a part of physical health.
What are some signs that people should look out for, or that they may notice if, their mental health might not be as healthy as it should be?
Well, that's a good question. There are several different signs, but what we can do is boil it down to the two big ones that everybody can relate to, and that would be depression and anxiety. So we all have that to some degree. Some people have it more than others. So as far as anxiety goes, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling extra on edge, if you're worrying a lot, those kinds of things would be anxiety. Depression is feeling very tired, lack of motivation. A lot of people think that it's only sadness. Sadness can be a part of it, but sadness is not all of it. As well as plenty of times, depression can come out as anger and irritability. So if you find yourself in, we'll just say, not a good mood and it's interfering with things, then that's the time to take a closer look.
And, from your perspective, how important is it to, when you start to feel this, not let it, I know fester is not a good word, but not to let it, build up, but to reach out, as soon as you, not maybe as soon as you feel these things, but when you notice they become more common?
Right. And actually, I'm glad that you bring that up, because on average, any kind of mental health concern goes on and on and on for years. And the study that I keep hearing cited is it's 7 years of anxiety, depression, whatever the trouble is, before someone actually gets help. So think of all of that suffering and all of that lost productivity and maybe lost relationships and all that kind of stuff. So just like with the health issue, the sooner you deal with it, the better. And not only will you have lost all that time, and maybe you've lost relationships and work and all other kinds of things, but you'll just simply feel better. So I urge people, don't wait 7 years before you decide to improve yourself.
And when it comes to improving yourself, what do you recommend people do? Do they reach out to their doctor? Do they find some place for counseling? What should they do?
Well, it depends on the situation. So I always recommend self-help first. So, how so many drivers are, they can take care of things themselves, or at least several of the things themselves. So if you start off with self-help books, if you do podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos on whatever the topic is, just make sure it's a trusted source. So do research the author of everything that you consume. Make sure that it's good. So start there. And if you feel that that's not enough and it's not doing the trick, then you bump it up. So some people have a really good relationship with their primary care doctor, and then they want to talk with their doctor about what's going on. That's just fine. Other people, they know that it's beyond maybe what their primary care doctor can tackle. So then they go directly to a therapist. So there's a few different ways to handle that situation. And I always recommend the behavior change, the dealing with the feelings before jumping to the medication. Because plenty of times if someone just jumps to medication, well, they can change some things in their life, and then they don't have to go that far. So anyway, every case is complex, and if you're in doubt as to what you need, then consult with a doctor, consult with a therapist, and then go from there.
Now, when it comes to, physical problems, you go to your doctor, you explain, what it feels like and whatnot. But when it comes to mental health, do you find sometimes people, they hesitate to reach out because they don't know how to explain it? They don't know maybe why they're feeling this way, or they feel like they have to have a reason they're feeling this way. Do you find that hinders people from reaching out to get help?
Plenty of times it does, and the stigma can be a factor here. And one of the things that having Mental Health Month is to address the stigma and to be talking about it and realize that there's no shame in this. So the more we talk about it, the better that it gets. And if you don't have the words for it so much, then you do the best that you can to explain to your doctor, explain to your therapist what's going on. And at least here in Indiana, where my office is, the primary care doctors have been doing an even better job by having more questionnaires about depression and anxiety. So when I went in for my annual checkup just the other day, they gave me more mental health forms. And that helps people to answer yes or no to everyday questions as far as, do I feel extra nervous, or do I have a hard time getting out of bed? Questions like that. And then that can start the conversation. And a lot of my clients say that their doctors are also giving those same questionnaires to their patients. So I hope that that's nationwide. And you know what? If it's not, you could always ask, hey, can I have a mental health questionnaire? And the doctors should have that on hand.
Do you notice when the seasons change that people struggle with different things, or is it kind of all over the board?
Well, there's a couple of different answers to that question. So on average, people do change their struggles with the season. For plenty of people, their struggle is all year round. It just depends on the person. But I'll tell you, on average, I think that a lot of people know about seasonal affective disorder. So the wintertime is coming and how tough that is. And everybody, well, not everybody, but so many people get depressed and all that kind of thing. So we all know about that. Something interesting is that during the summertime, plenty of times there is a summertime depression that happens, and it's less prevalent. And to make a long story short, when I talk with a lot of drivers, they get more depressed like in July because they're busy driving and they don't have time to go on vacation, and they're watching everybody else on the road on their family vacations, and it's right there in their faces. They see those campers going down the road and so on, and it's a big reminder of how unfair it is that they can't be on vacation or can't get enough vacation. And then that causes its own type of depression. So yeah, it's always changing throughout the year.
When it comes to truck drivers, what do you recommend? Of course, they're probably thinking, I can't have a traditional in-person appointment. So what do you recommend for them as far as reaching out and getting some help?
Well, the good news is that teletherapy is very common at this point, and there is plenty of research that shows that it is very helpful. So I highly recommend contacting someone that can provide teletherapy for you. There are issues with therapists only being licensed in the particular states, and that turns into things that are a little bit difficult. So make a long story short, contact a therapist in your own state, and then that's more likely to work. So that is the good news, that here in the past few years, teletherapy is quite recognized, quite normalized, and life is good. And for some of the therapists, you can do sessions while you're on the road and then go to the therapist's office, if that would be your style, when you have home time. So you can do a hybrid for some of the therapists that offer that.
And I'm sure this is different for everybody in every situation, but how many appointments, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, that you find it takes for someone to kind of start to turn that corner and feel better and kind of see the changes?
Well, yeah, that is a good question. So, of course, there isn't a solid answer on it's X number of sessions. However, I would say a handful of appointments commonly is needed in order to turn that corner, like what you said, and to be able to start moving forward. So I think the biggest mistake that I see is that I have clients that they give up after session 2, session 3, and they say, well, this isn't working. It isn't worth it. It's not worth my time. It's not worth my money, or whatever. And then they give up. And there's some people that continue to do that. And then they go through quite a few different therapists. And if they just would have stayed and given it, I'll commonly say, give it 5 sessions before you make a judgment. So that would be something that we would be looking at. And as far as the amount of sessions, it depends on how complicated things are. Sometimes people finish up, in the 10-session range. Other people, they can be going on and on for several months. It just depends what they need.
And you mentioned the stigma earlier in our interview. How do you think society's doing as far as, tearing that down when it comes to mental health?
I think society is doing a whole lot better with the stigma. And I've always said for the past several years that it's getting better every day. And the social media causes plenty of problems. But on the upside, I think social media has definitely helped to reduce the stigma when it comes to therapy. So it's getting better and better. The more people are talking about it, the more that's going to help. And one thing is recognizing mental health and acknowledging it. And then the other piece is actually taking action. So getting help for yourself or reaching out to friends and family that you're worried about their mental health and talking with them, actually doing something about it instead of just simply saying, yes, mental health exists.
If anyone listening is thinking, you know what, I should reach out, what do you recommend they do? What's the first step they should take?
If you're looking to reach out to get some therapy, I think the best thing that you can do is do a Google search for therapists in your area and read about them. Don't even say, okay, I have to contact anybody, but just do some reading on the services that are offered. Educate yourself a little bit there. And then if you're going to be using insurance, take a look at your insurance website. It's got a list of all of the therapists that would be available to you, so you can double check that. That would be a good starting point. You could also call your doctor and see if you can get some names. And that kind of method usually works quite well.
All right, perfect. Anything else to add?
Well, I think that that's pretty much the long and short of it. Just remember, every day is Mental Health Day, and we need to pay attention to our mental health year-round, as well as the other people that we care about, and just let it be an ongoing conversation and keep being as positive as you can with it, and life will be better.
That was therapist Buck Black talking about Mental Health Awareness Month. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Protect your diesel engine with Howe's Diesel Defender. Restore vital lubricity, eliminate injector deposits, and boost fuel economy by 5% or more. Power, performance, protection, all in one. Howe's Diesel Defender, available now.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one, That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Welcome back to Landline Now. From speed limit changes in the north to ticket quota conversations in the Midwest, it's time to get a check on the goings-on at state capitals throughout the country. And joining us with the Inside Scoop, as always, is Keith Goebel, State Legislative Editor for Landline Magazine. Keith, always good to see you.
Scott, how you doing?
Doing just fine. My
Good.
voice maybe not quite as fine, but
I didn't even notice.
We're getting through it. Let's start with these speed limit changes in a couple states, Keith. We've got the governors in 2 states signing off on changes in North Dakota and Montana. Let's start with North Dakota. What's going on there?
In North Dakota, it's been a while since we've talked about speed limits.
Yeah,
I don't even know if people even remember the last time we...
They do still exist. Last time I checked, yeah.
North Dakota speed limits, nevertheless. If folks might recall, a couple years ago, in North Dakota, they're in session every other year. But in their last legislative session, when there was a different governor, they sent a bill identical to what they approved here for 2025 to the governor, and the governor at that point in 2023 vetoed it. I mean, it was, I don't want to say it was complicated, but I mean, it was something that was vetoed. They wasn't on board with authorizing 80-mile-per-hour speed limits for cars and trucks. Of course, as it is now, as it has been for over 20 years there in North Dakota, it's been 75 miles per hour for cars and trucks traveling on the interstates, 29 and 94. Prior to that, it was 70 miles per hour. But here, for the past at least couple of legislative sessions, I mean, there's been pursuit to permit both cars and trucks to travel 80. And legislature, once again, approved it, sent it to a new governor, Governor Kelly Armstrong, and this time around was signed into law. So here very soon, they will, if you're driving along in North Dakota on the interstate, you'll be permitted for 80-mile-per-hour speeds.
It's always interesting when states do this because they're obviously looking at the data here, and I know North Dakota did because one of the members of Congress there in North Dakota talked about the 85th percentile speed on North Dakota interstates, and that was kind of, I suppose, a reason for making this change, right?
Yeah, of course. There was concern that had to be addressed there for lawmakers. Anytime you're calling for a change to permit faster travel, it's the typical responses are, well, is that going to mean folks who are driving 80 are going to go 85 or whatever the case might be? As was pointed out there in the legislature in North Dakota, was that the 85th percentile speed. Research has shown that traveling on North Dakota interstates, 82, 83 miles per hour is what 85% of the folks who are traveling are going. And, of course, that's the speed that they're comfortable with. Boosting the speed limit for everyone from 75 to 80 is more in line with what folks are already doing, what they feel is the safer speed. There really isn't much anticipation that speeds are going to change. If folks, they're just closer to the actual speed limit. So there should be fewer instances where perhaps law enforcement feels like they need to potentially pull someone over for speeding. I mean, the expectation is what they're doing with this new law is going to be more in line with what folks are traveling.
I know there's a concern there in North Dakota about speed differentials because obviously many trucks are limited to 60, 65 miles per hour. And I know there were concerns there in the state because I read your story on landline.media. That concern is going to extend to Montana, it looks like, at least for a certain stretch of roadway in the south central portion of the state because they've got a new law there.
Yeah. One of the points again made with North Dakota was that was one of the questions was why don't we just keep trucks at a lower speed. And, again, going back to the 85th percentile, it's just we want everybody to be traveling about the same speed.
Yeah.
But, yeah, hey, in Montana, at least for one stretch of roadway, hey, that's not the case. What they've done, as this bill was introduced in the House, it was more all-encompassing. But to get it through the State House, they really had to focus in and really just highlight one stretch of US 87, about a 30-mile stretch from Townsend to Interstate 90 there near Three Forks. What they've done there, of course, you've got the daytime, nighttime speed rule. What they're doing with this new law is that for cars, passenger vehicles, they're going to be permitted to go 75 miles per hour during the day and 70 miles per hour at night. Trucks unaffected by this, so trucks that have had 65 miles per hour, and they still have 65 miles per hour, whether they're traveling at day or at night, they're going to continue to drive those speeds. So, in effect, what you're going to have during the daytime, again, along this portion of US 287, is you'll have a 10 mile per hour differential, and at night you will have a 5 mile per hour differential. So, yeah, not as good of a deal overall as what we've seen here in North Dakota, but maybe more concerning. As I mentioned, this bill as introduced, it would have applied to more roadways.
Right.
But they just essentially it's a test, see how it goes. But yeah, the Montana DOT, I mean, they came out and they said, but we could do this later on. We could apply it to more roadways. They want to see how it works out.
So they probably will.
So yeah, that potential definitely is out there.
That's my bet. Let's move on real quick here to the Buckeye State, Ohio, where state lawmakers are having conversations right now about ticket quotas. And I guess there are two sides to every debate, but the loudest ones right now are trying to get rid of ticket quotas. What's the conversation there?
Yeah, fortunately for the most part, when it comes to ticket quotas, there isn't a lot of defense of them.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all something that's not going to be acknowledged, and it's one of the reasons why it seems like states continue to have to revisit this issue, trying to address any and all instances where they could be used. This particular bill, this Ohio bill, worth pointing out, there's a House version and a Senate version which allows lawmakers in both chambers to theoretically discuss it simultaneously in hopes that it would help expedite getting it approved. In this case, the Senate voted unanimously to endorse this bill, so it allows it to move over to the House. What they're focusing on here is both arrest mandates and ticket mandates, essentially putting in place a rule that you cannot establish a requirement or even a suggestion that an officer meet a quota, nor could an officer benefit from meeting certain thresholds, or that they could be punished for meeting certain thresholds. So putting some rules in place, some protections in place to address some concerns, obviously, that have been brought up by law enforcement officers there throughout the state.
Well, yeah, and the law enforcement officers who have spoken up about this idea seem to be in support of doing away with quotas, or at least putting some restraints on them, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that has been communicated to lawmakers, and one really good point that was made by a county commissioner that had an opportunity to be there at the State House to provide some testimony. He said, told lawmakers that quotas invert the purpose of policing. So you're turning a protective function into a predatory one.
Yep.
So good points to be made there. Also, worth pointing out real quickly, if this bill is approved, the Attorney General's office, they will be required to investigate those claims.
Get all the latest news from the state level courtesy of Keith Goebel on our newly redesigned website, landline.media. Keith, we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks for listening. That's our show for today, but we're back tomorrow with another, and we hope to see you then.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm. I'm a veteran. I love old cars, fishing,
My kids.
chrome, and I am a professional truck driver.
And together, we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.